98 kilometers an hour leading into the sprint finish. Surprising attacks, crashes, and a big bunch sprint to start the Criterium du Dauphiné. One of the only sprints. Definitely would be one. On stage 5 we could have one, but otherwise we have uphill finishes tomorrow for stage 2, and then the last 3 stages of this Criterium du Dauphiné extremely difficult with some steep mountaintop finishes, usually cracking mountain stages next weekend. There's also a 32-kilometer long hilly TT. But today we start with the sprint. They do some local laps around Saint-Pourçant-sur-Sioule. There's a few hills in the first 45 kilometers. They take a look at the finish line, which has a right-hand bend with about 200 meters to go. And who do we have here in the Dauphiné? Good start list as usual before the Tour de France. Primoz Roglic, Remco Evenepoel, although he says he's not going for GC. And the best sprinter here is Mads Pedersen. There's also Sam Bennett from the sprint field, but not a deep sprint field due to the lack of sprint stages. So they were the two teams controlling. Verona and I think Nicolas Prudhomme for Decathlonage des Ailes Mondial, controlling the 2-up breakaway of Lebert and Stewart. So wasn't really aggressive in the early hills, was a pretty conventional, well-controlled stage, to be honest. 25k's to go. All the GC teams get the word, get to the front, stay safe, so you avoid crashes at the back. James Whelan going down and having to abandon the race, the Q36.5 rider, and the breakaways reeled in with about 15 kilometers to go. So the roads go narrow, they go a little bit wider, and then they actually finish and come in on a big main road, which was really, really fast with a downhill section in the last 10 kilometers or so. But right now, the race wasn't on. Ineos, UAE, Bora, and UNOX, but the 3 GC teams, they had it blocked up on this last hill, keeping it safe, but Nils Pollitt has a word to Marc Soler, and the answer seems to be to go for it. Pollitt sends it. Joshua Tarling started to go to his wheel, could have gone to his wheel, looks behind and realizes, actually, what is he doing? Our goal is to get the GC Carlos Rodriguez safe. Haller the same on the right for Bora Hansgrohe, kind of like a red rag to a bull. It's all on. It's all off. It takes one rider jumping, and Haller's jumping. Tarling stopped and then started to pull it back, even though it's two rouleurs. These guys are not a threat on GC, and then Tarling pulls so strong he even creates a split. So I think no one really knew what to do, because none of these guys jumping are GC relevant. This was not the plan. Everyone probably thought the GC teams would just ride side by side, but Pollitt threw a bit of a spanner in the works. Eventually everybody calms down. The last EF attacker is brought back, and we were going to be going to our sprint. No one was dropped. The hills weren't hard enough. It wasn't like previous years in the Dauphiné. And Ineos set up on the right-hand side, doing a really, really good job as usual, keeping Rodriguez safe with Ben Turner to the 3Ks to go mark. Kwiatkowski will be the last man pulling in. Pedersen and Trek. Okay, they put Verona on the front, but through all that shenanigans just then, normally in previous Dauphiné years, it's been them having to close down late attackers. And in fact, they got to sit in and let the GC teams neutralize the race and pull. You see UAE with Soler and then Pollitt spinning it out 98 kilometers an hour down this big road descent. Really, really fingers crossed stuff, hoping nobody makes a mistake on that big wide road downhill. And 3K's gone. Kwiatkowski says, okay, my work is done. UNOX going for Magnus Cort in the sprint, but it's not that difficult to sprint. It hasn't been that difficult to stage either. It really is still a pure bunch sprint. On this kicker, Godon launches it. The Decathlon looking good, but maybe a bit early if you're counting the numbers. They got 4. Little Trek now have 4 with Schoens pulling, but they're 600 meters deeper into the stage, and even they might be left on the front too early, with Alex Kirsch being the second last lead-up man, the big Luxembourg national champ, going with 1,200 meters to go, 70 k's an hour lead-out. Now maybe with the downhill through this Flamme Rouge, they can prolong it and go a bit longer. There's also the fact that there's not really many sprinters here. There's not really many lead-outs here, especially not of the caliber of Little Trek. So Kirsch gets away with some free meters because there isn't anyone to wash over. Same with Gibbons. He checked behind, conserves his effort. Normally the last man will do 200, 250 meters. He goes way longer because, apart from Intermarché on the right-hand side going for Hugo Page, there isn't really any other lead-out trains, and so he goes from like 750 deep into this finish. He's got to get Pedersen first into that right-hand bend, and then you can let Pedersen do the rest, and that's what he does. So super job by Gibbons. You can see him shouting at Pedersen. Bennett tries to come out of the wheel but has to sit down. You'll see it better in the overhead, how Bennett's sprint progressed, but he comes out of his lead-up man's wheel here. He gets onto Leipin's wheel. He's thinking, do I go take Pedersen's wheel here? But Leipin is fighting with Wright, and he overlaps his wheel with Pedersen, and I think Leipin's overlaps, has to correct, loses tension on the chain, and then drops the chain somehow. And so Bennett has to start sprinting earlier than he wanted to, and so he had to do that effort. But then again, Pedersen was sitting second wheel where you're eating a lot more draft, or you're getting less draft rather, than Bennett. So swings and roundabouts, and when it came out of that right-hand turn, well, there's only one winner. Pedersen was clearly the strongest. Bennett, when he came out of the draft, was going backwards. And so Pedersen wins again, his 8th win this season. He keeps winning in France. He won Tour de Provence, all the stages just about. Ahead of Bennett, then Ugo Page, Venturini, Oendul, Gazzoli, Garcia Cortina, Wright, Russo, and Magnus Cort. Here's what the Danish star had to say after the stage.
Take us through that final kilometer. Again, some great work from Little Trek. Great work during the whole day, but especially in that final part where you were perfectly let out.
Yeah, like Carlos, he did super good there pulling. It's not an easy, even with 2 guys, we were going quite fast in the beginning. And yeah, Alex, he's controlling this lead out to perfection. And of course, Toms and Ryan, they also need the power to deliver it. But Toms is doing an incredible job, the same with Alex. And Ryan, he also delivered perfect today. So yeah, a lead out to perfection, I would say.
Tomorrow we already have our first uphill finish on Col de la Loge. It's not Col de la Loze like we saw last year. Roglic, Vlasov, loads of different riders and GC contenders wanting bonus seconds, and I'll see you with a recap tomorrow. Ciao.